very fortunate to have with us Michael Haefliger, Artistic Director of the Lucerne Festival and esteemed member of the jury. We were wondering, we just saw a video of Boulez conducting Stravinsky's Firebird Suite, and as I understand, you have a close working relationship with Boulez. Could you tell us a bit about him and a bit about your relationship?
Well, I would say that Pierre Boulez is one of the central figures at Lucerne Festival since 10 years when we built up the Academy for Contemporary Music with him. Of course, he has conducted many concerts also with the London Symphony, but this work with the Lucerne Festival Academy has really become a central part of our collaboration, and he, throughout the past 10 years, has really been a leading figure at Lucerne.
Итак, я хотела бы представить, у нас сегодня член жюри Michael Haefliger, который является директором Люцернского фестиваля. И мы только что посмотрели с вами видео, где Пьер Boulez дирижирует Стравинским. И наш вопрос был напрямую связан с этим видео. И, конечно же, наш гость подтверждает, что отношения с Пьером Boulezом сложились прекрасно. И он дирижирует и Лондонским симфоническим оркестром, и Люцернским оркестром. И он, безусловно, огромная величина 20 века и музыки 20 века. And can you tell us a little bit about the Boulez Academy and
The Boulez Academy is really one of its kind. It's for young, highly aspiring musicians from all over the world. We invite them to come to Lucerne, and in 3 weeks they really perform a wonderful repertoire of 20th and 21st century music.
And how do you select these participants?
We select them through our jury that we have, and it's video and auditions. It's a mixture of both. And of course, it's also a recommendation, and so it's very difficult to get into.
Maybe if you hear somebody nice at the Tchaikovsky competition, could you also invite through here?
That's what I would really like to suggest to the Tchaikovsky competition, that there would be a stronger focus also on the repertoire of 20th and 21st century. And just Shostakovich, of course, is an important piece, and I think it's such a phenomenal work. And the modernity, the Russian modernity that is projected in this piece always overwhelms me again and again. And but I think that we would welcome very much, with great pleasure, more musicians from Russia to the Academy.
Итак, мы говорим об Академии Пьера Bouleza. Я поинтересовалась, что это такое. Оказывается, это молодой оркестр, который создают специально для фестиваля в Люцерне. Там участвуют молодые участники. Я поинтересовалась, можно ли было бы пригласить кого-нибудь из участников на конкурсе Чайковского на этот фестиваль. Это было бы, конечно, замечательно. И господин Haefliger выразил желание, чтобы в Люцерн приезжало больше и больше русских музыкантов.
On the same note, I was thinking, isn't it a shame that within the musical community at large, there isn't more of a focus on late 20th century, 21st century contemporary music in general? Pierre Boulez, of course, has done wonders for this personally, but I still feel that we could, as a community, be doing more. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think it really depends very much on what you believe in. And for instance, a presenter who doesn't believe in contemporary music, he better should not do it. Mm-hmm. You have to believe in it. We have done a lot of work throughout the past 15 years in Lucerne, but that is also because I believe it's important, but it's not only important, it's a part of music and it's part of the development. And if you stop that process, at the end of the day, you will be stopping the process in music itself, and that is very, very dangerous. And it's very important that we have performers who are good in performing this repertoire, because many don't have really the experience, they don't have the education, and therefore we don't have good performers. And but if you hear some of the great players who perform it, then you see how fascinating this music is in all its dimension, and it's very much a part of us and our society.
Мы говорим о музыке 20 века, нам кажется, что очень мало она играется 20 и 21 века. И что же для этого делать? И господин Haefliger говорит, что в первую очередь надо верить в то, что эта музыка действительно достойна исполнения, и потом уже ее играть. И если же она играется без какого-то внутреннего контекста, тогда это, в принципе, не имеет никакого смысла. Но, конечно, хотелось бы, чтобы музыка 20 и 21 века звучала больше. We have noticed with Sascha that in the competition context, in the second round, in the recital round, only few people played contemporary music. And of course, it's a shame. But we know that you're very progressive. You like to promote classical music and worldwide, and also the contemporary music. You try to shorten the distance between the audience and the classical musicians. And what do you think is the key to this better relationship between the audience and the classical music, as well as the audience and the contemporary music?
I think it's all in a way. It needs a strong educational focus. I think you cannot just simply expect from people to understand it. I mean, classical music in itself needs time to get adjusted, to understand it, to listen to it. And that is an educational process in a way. But you also need to fascinate with great performers and to really also believe in and be emotional and passionate about it. And don't think that maybe people don't like it, but think that people will love it. Mm-hmm. And this is the emphasis we have to do. And that's, you can educate, but you also need to really create the fascination through the performance and through having great performance.
Я поинтересовалась, что же делать для того, чтобы классическая музыка была любима, и также, чтобы музыка современная была принята обществом и публикой. И здесь, конечно же, ответ очень прост. С одной стороны, это образование, надо получать соответствующее образование, надо изучать музыку. С другой стороны, надо любить, даже обожать классическую музыку, и тогда этот контакт обязательно наладится.
There seems to be a lot of concern within the musical community at the average age of concert goers. The fact that audiences tend to be of a fairly advanced age, and we seem to struggle to attract younger audiences. Although in my personal experience, I don't find this to necessarily be the case, but it seems to be a general perception. What, from your standpoint, should be done to attract a younger audience, to break the boundaries of perception between young audiences and classical music?
I think we have to be very much aware that we need to build new audiences and younger audiences, but it's not only young audiences, it's also new audiences. People are getting older, they're passing 80 and 90, and they still want to come to concerts, they want to enjoy life, and they want to have a good time with classical music. And so we need to very much think about building new audiences and communication of our programs, of our contents, of our beliefs. And the aspect of younger audiences is particularly challenging because in the schools there is less and less training. At least that's how it is in Switzerland. When I come to Russia, when I see this audience here, I still always feel this is still another world. You have a wonderful audience for classical music from young to old, and they seem to be also concentrated and focused and devoted. But obviously, we need to have the money for the education, for music in schools, in general, public schools, but also, of course, the specialized training, the focus training. And I think we should not worry too much, but simply do it and believe in classical music. Classical music is not only classical, it's music. And I always say it's not classical music, but it's emotional music and passionate music. You have everything. You listen to the Shostakovich, you listen to the Tchaikovsky just before. That's everything we want.
Мы говорим о том, что классическая музыка — это очень страстная, это очень красивая музыка. И действительно молодых, мы заговорили о том, что в принципе в публике очень часто мы видим людей уже зрелого возраста, и мало молодежи ходит на концерты. И что же для этого делать? И, конечно, хотелось бы в школьные программы ввести музыку, чтобы было больше финансирования для юношеских, для детских музыкальных программ. Потому что ведь музыка классическая, она великая, она гениальная, и она должна быть близка к публике. И отметил ли русскую публику, что все-таки зал действительно переполненный, очень много молодых, очень много студентов, и все с большим интересом слушают эту музыку. Just before the interview, you've mentioned that you've been here before on a special occasion. Can you just tell our audience a little bit about this?
It was a very moving concert, one of the last concerts actually. Claudio Abbado conducted. We were here 3 years ago with the Lucerne Festival Orchestra and with Bruckner Fifth Symphony. It was a fantastic performance. I will never forget. It was one of the great moments with Claudio, and it was great to be here with this audience. And I had to think about it a lot today.
We're going to be hearing quite shortly a clip of Claudio conducting Mahler Ninth. Claudio's Mahler is very legendary, really, and you must have had a lot of chances to listen to it in your time with him. Could you tell us a little bit about that specifically?
Well, I think Claudio Abbado had all his life a very, very profound and intimate relationship with the music of Gustav Mahler. And the nice thing and the fortunate thing, it's got deeper and deeper and deeper. So we were very fortunate in Lucerne that in his last 10 years he was working with the Lucerne Festival Orchestra, and we did almost the complete cycle with the exception of the Mahler 8th, which for some reason he didn't really like so much. He had difficulties with it, but we really had the great possibility to have his last interpretation of the Mahler symphonies with the Lucerne Festival Orchestra, and they're documents for eternity.
Мы заговорили о том, что Михаил Хаефлигер был в этом зале уже раньше, когда 3 года назад Клаудио Аббадо дирижировал здесь симфонию Брукнер номер 5, пятой симфонии Брукнера. И мы хотели бы показать вам видео из архивов Медичи.tv, где Клаудио Аббадо дирижирует 9-й симфонии Малера. И Саша поинтересовался, какие же взаимоотношения у Клаудио Аббадо с Малером. И, безусловно, это музыка на вечность. То, что мы документальные видео, которые остались, это абсолютно бесподобные архивные записи, где мы видим, как Аббадо просто вот глубже и глубже проникался музыкой Малера. Поэтому мы как раз сейчас бы хотели прервать наше интервью и показать вам это видео Клаудио Аббадо Малер, симфония номер 9. Итак, напомним вам, у нас в гостях Михаил Хаефлигер, и мы говорили сейчас на тему Малера, на тему Пьера Булеза. My next question is about something completely else, which is completely different, which is the fact that you have been studying violin, and you've played violin, and you've been a violinist, and also you've studied music management. And so you know this other side of the music business. And my question is a little tricky, so I hope you will not feel offended. We see from the biographies of our contestants that they go from one competition to another competition. They're prize winners. They play with in the great concert halls with great conductors. Yet they all complain that they don't have enough concerts. They're not getting paid properly, and that the level of the life.
Well, yeah, their careers really aren't reaching the heights that they would need it to in order to live from it successfully.
So what goes wrong?
Well, I can tell you a very interesting story. When I finished my studies at Juilliard, by the way, my graduation was with the Tchaikovsky Concerto, so I still get nervous when I listen to it. And what happens is, they don't know what to do, and obviously you can't even buy a train ticket with a degree. So what I did, for instance, is I just decided with a few colleagues from Juilliard to create a festival in Davos in Switzerland, and actually worked out. And naturally, that's where I discovered really that I had a lot of talent, maybe even more than on the violin with, creating concepts
So you
for
had to
festival
stop
and
playing
organization. I didn't have to, no, I continued, but after 5 years, then I decided to go into the other direction because it was, to me, more fulfilling. I prefer to be out with people.
But what can you suggest to those who want to play, who can't live without a musical
that
instrument?
they don't only play the violin, but that they think, how could they contribute to the society? Maybe create a festival or create concerts themselves. I mean, today with all the modern communication of YouTube, social media and everything, you can communicate much, much more easily. And so not to sit there and wait, but do go out and be active. And, really take your own responsibility into your hands and don't wait that somebody's going to discover you.
Мы заговорили о том, что же делать тем музыкантам, которые из конкурса в конкурс становятся лауреатами и много путешествуют, но тем не менее они не могут себе позволить покупать хорошие инструменты или жить достаточно комфортабельно. Тем не менее не хватает концертов, не хватает средств, как сказал наш гость, не хватает даже средств для того, чтобы купить себе билет на поезд. В чем же проблема? Почему есть такой дисбаланс между обществом и музыкантами? Почему такие низкие гонорары? Ну и наш гость рекомендует не сидеть на месте, действовать, быть активными, открывать фестивали, создавать какие-то проекты и быть достаточно активными, потому что в современном обществе, когда есть социальные медиа, когда есть YouTube, есть столько возможностей, надо себя проявлять и активно очень двигаться.
From a financial point of view, because budget often seems to be a major concern, especially within the classical music business. There seems to be a contrast. You have experience both in Europe but also in Asia in terms of organizing concert events, organizing festivals, with your festival which you organized in Japan for the victims of the tsunami. There seems to be a contrast between East and West in terms of the funding available. In the Far East, there seems to be a great deal of funding available to the arts, especially classical music, whereas in the West, this financial availability seems to be decreasing given the economic climate, especially governments which move towards the right tend to consider that culture is somehow less of an essential component of their financial priorities. What do you, as a concert organizer, as a festival organizer, feel about this?
Well, I run a festival which has about 3% subsidy, so I raise most of the money through corporations and private donors. So I'm very experienced in raising it myself. I can't really say that governments are changing. I think that the challenges for governments is that the interests of the population is changing, that technology in communication is vastly changing over and over again, and that people are just getting more restless. They don't decide on one thing, then they do it for 10 years, but they do one thing and then maybe the next day they do another thing, and everything becomes much more quicker in terms of change of customs and change of behavior. So I think that's what many of the educational departments of governments are facing. I can't really say that in European countries it is changing because of a move to the right. That would be wrong. I think it's changing because of a lot of social challenges, like we now have with all the immigrants from Africa, and that there's more social complexity in general in many European countries. So that's why simply sometimes the money is running out. And but I think that in West, in Middle Europe and the UK, we still have a very strong support for the arts. But we, as the presenters, as the directors, have to fight for it and have to tell everybody that it's absolutely necessary.
To support music.
Yeah. It depends on us.
И мы разговаривали о финансовой части музыки, почему же музыка не финансируется, почему же очень часто не хватает бюджетных денег на то, чтобы было хорошее музыкальное образование, чтобы было много фестивалей и концертов. И это очень серьезный социально-политический вопрос, на который, конечно, ответить в 2 словах очень сложно, и мне перевести очень сложно, поэтому я очень вкратце, я прошу прощения для тех, кто понимает по-английски, не обижайтесь, действительно, времени мало, но здесь дело касается того, что государство не поддерживает, конечно, классическую музыку, и приходится на каких-то на личных проектах это финансирование находить. Но, тем не менее, это опять мы возвращаемся к тому, что должен быть какой-то собственная инициатива, собственное желание напоминать, что музыке, конечно, нужны средства. Я знаю, что вы говорите по-русски немножко, поэтому я позволю себе закончить наше интервью и спросить вас, счастливы ли вы на конкурсе, нравится ли вам здесь, и что вы желаете молодым музыкантам?
Я немножко говорю по-русски, не отлично. Но я могу вам сказать, для меня это большая честь быть здесь. И сидеть в этом жюри с этими музыкантами, скрипачками, очень известными. Быть с ними вместе, это очень большая честь. Я получаю много удовольствия от этого. И я думаю, что конкурс Тчайковский – это один из самых важных в мире. И я думаю, что это очень важно, это конкурс to develop, как сказать. Развивать. И я думаю, что этот конкурс имеет много будущего.
Just the same in English in few words, please. I'm not daring to translate you.
Well, for me, it's just a great honor to be here in this jury with these wonderful musicians and to think only about the violin again for a couple of days here. And it has a real, very, very special aura, this competition for me. I always wanted to play in it as a young boy, but I didn't make it, so now I can be in the jury. And I think it's one of the most important ones. It needs to grow, it needs to develop, it needs to improve, of course, like any competition. But I think that it's growing strongly and can really become one of the most important art institutions in the world. Not only a competition, but an institution.
Michael, thank you so much for joining us. Pleasure. And I wish you happy listening. Great success.
Спасибо и хорошего вам вечера. Спасибо.